rain on a narrow alley. 12 feet of wet brick between two old buildings in Portland. The fire escapes almost close enough to touch. Pull back. One window dark and blue, a single stove light burning. A man stands at the sink with a coffee mug gone cold in his hand. He is not supposed to be looking across the gap. A second window, warm and gold. A woman, one arm tangled in a sweater she is pulling over her head. She looks up. She catches him. Neither of them moves close on her hand. It reaches for the window latch. Close on his face. He has stopped breathing. Then the window screeches open. Cold air floods the alley. And before he can apologize, before he can run, she speaks first, like they are already in the middle of something. And whatever happens next, both of them will spend years tracing back to this exact, accidental, unbearable second. The thing I should say first is that I was not standing there with binoculars and a sick imagination. I was making coffee. Just coffee. At 10:43 on a Thursday night in October, in a kitchen that smelled like sawdust and burned toast from 2 days ago. Wearing jogger pants with a paint stain on the left knee that had been there since spring. Holding a mug that used to belong to my father. That was the situation. Then the woman across the alley pulled her sweater over her head and caught me looking through my kitchen window. For half a second, neither of us moved. Rain ran down the glass between us. Her apartment was warm and gold. Mine was blue and dark except for the stove light. She had one arm still tangled in the sweater, dark hair falling over her face, and I had a mug in my hand that suddenly weighed as much as a car battery. Because here is the thing about old buildings on East Burnside in Portland. The alleys are narrow, 12 feet across, maybe less. The fire escapes almost touch. If both windows are open and the wind is right, you can hear the upstairs neighbor argue with her cat about cabinet space. You can smell what the third floor on the other side is cooking. You can see accidentally into lives you were never supposed to see. I had been very careful, for 8 months, not to see. She stared straight at me. I froze. She reached for her window latch, and I thought, well, this is how it ends. Not in a hospital bed, not saving a child from a burning building, not in any kind of brave way. Just murdered on a Thursday by a furious neighbor with very good posture. The window screeched open. Cold rain air rushed into the alley, and she said, with a voice that had laughter tucked underneath it like a knife wrapped in a napkin, "If you're going to look that guilty, Jeffrey, at least tell me if this dress is too much." That was the first time Rachel Flores spoke to me. Like we were already in the middle of something. Like we had been talking for years, and I had just stepped out of the room for a minute. And the thing that landed hardest, the thing that froze me in the cold draft like a fool, was that she knew my name. My name is Jeffrey Lewis. I'm 34. I restore furniture for a living, which mostly means I bring scratched tables and broken chairs back from the dead, in a workshop my grandfather opened in 1958 with $200 of Navy discharge money. The shop is called Lewis & Son Restoration. The son in the name was my father Kenneth, who died of a stroke at the workbench 4 years ago. So technically the name is wrong now. It should be Lewis and no one. Lewis and a ghost. Lewis and whoever is left. I never changed the sign. I'm better with things that have already fallen apart than I am with people who are in the process of doing it. That's a sentence I learned to say in a kitchen at midnight without anyone there to hear it. Practice. Apparently, for this exact moment, she knew my name. That was the thing that landed. I cleared my throat and looked at the ceiling, which did not need my attention. But got it. I didn't. The words came out like a chair with a missing leg. Jeffrey, look up. So I looked up, just enough to see her face. Not the rest of her. She had pulled on a deep green dress now, one shoulder bare, the fabric the kind of green that meant somebody had been thinking about it for a while. Her cheeks were flushed, but she didn't look embarrassed. She looked entertained, which was worse, because I have no defense against a woman who can catch me at my worst and still pick humor. I'm sorry, I tried again. I was making coffee, as if the coffee explained anything, as if the coffee was a character witness. Terrible timing, I noticed. I deserve that, you do. She tilted her head. So, too much? I blinked. You're asking me. You're the only man currently available in the alley. It's a very exclusive category. Don't let it go to your head. I risked another glance. The dress made her look like someone who had decided to be braver than she felt. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe it was the way her fingers kept smoothing the same seam at her waist. Smoothing. Like she was trying to flatten a crease that only she could see. No, I said. Not too much. It's the kind of dress that makes people wish they'd tried harder. The words came out before I could put a coat on them. For a moment the rain filled the silence. Her hand rested on the window frame. The teasing in her face softened into something else for half a heartbeat. Then she put the teasing back on like a sweater she didn't want to admit was warm. That was dangerously close to a real compliment. I restore antiques. Sometimes sincerity leaks out. Messy profession. You have no idea. She smiled then. And I felt it in a place I had not used in a while. A place I had, frankly, packed up in a cardboard box 2 years ago and labeled "Do Not Open." 2 years ago. A useful unit of measurement. 2 years ago I was engaged to a woman named Amanda Perez, who loved plans more than people. When she left, she did it efficiently. 1 conversation. 3 boxes. A forwarded wedding deposit receipt with a note that said, "I think we both knew. I hadn't known." That was the problem. After that I became careful. Careful with invitations. Careful with eye contact. Careful with women who watered basil on windowsills at 6:15 in the morning, and sang Motown badly on Saturdays, and stood in their kitchens at midnight eating cereal out of a mixing bowl, like civilization had personally let them down. I had not meant to watch her. But buildings like ours made strangers into accidental witnesses. You learned who burned toast, who fought on the phone, who danced alone, who stood in the kitchen after midnight looking like they were trying to remember what happiness felt like. She had learned things about me too, apparently. Because she knew my name, I cleared my throat again. New question. Better question. Survivable question. How do you know my name? She looked for a second, almost guilty. Then she shrugged it off like a coat that didn't fit. Your mailbox. I go past it every morning. You get a lot of mail from a place called Lewis and Son. I assumed Son. That tracks. Should it be Son and Son? Just Son. Just the one. She heard it. The flatness. The way I leveled the sentence too carefully. The way I sand a piece of pine before staining it. Removing every burr because a burr is a place where a feeling can catch. She didn't push. I appreciated that more than she could possibly know. Rachel, she said. Rachel Flores. So now we're even. Rachel, I repeated. The name fit her mouth differently than mine. Like she had grown into it, and I was borrowing it. And before you ask. I've known your name for about 3 weeks. I've been working up the nerve to walk over and introduce myself like a normal adult. But the universe apparently prefers theater. Strong directorial choice. I'm going to file a complaint. We both half laughed, and the alley filled with it for a second, the sound bouncing off wet brick. Then she glanced over her shoulder. Into the apartment behind her. Something in there pulled at her, and the joke fell off her face like water off a leaf. When she turned back, her hand was tighter on the windowsill. Can I ask you something awkward? More awkward than the current situation. Fair point. She leaned a little closer to the window, and the alley suddenly felt less like empty space and more like a wire stretched tight between 2 posts. One bad note and the whole thing would hum. Do you have plans Saturday night? I laughed. Once, because it was safer than answering too fast. My plans were to sand a walnut credenza and pretend it counts as a social life. Perfect. Low standards. I like it. That's going on my business card. I'll order them. Then she bit her lower lip. The humor slipped. Underneath it was something that had been doing pull-ups in private. Nerves, trained nerves. The kind that had been rehearsed. My sister has an engagement party Saturday. My mother invited my ex. The way she said the word ex. Flat, quiet. Like dropping a brick in a tub of water without making a splash. Because, apparently. Boundaries are something other families do. That's aggressive. That's my mother. She thinks any relationship can be repaired with enough appetizers and public pressure. Can it? No, she looked directly at me, not through me, not past me, at me some. But it seems like it can be survived with a +1. The rain tapped harder against the metal fire escapes. I should have said no. A normal man would have said no. A wise man would have apologized, closed the window, returned to his coffee, and let this story become an anecdote he carried into the next polite dinner party. The night the neighbor across the alley caught me looking and asked me to a party, and I, like a responsible adult, declined. The end. Passed the bread. Instead, I heard myself say, with the calm of a man stepping off a curb without looking, "Are you asking me to be your fake boyfriend?" I was going to say emotional support neighbor. Less legally binding, also less likely to make your ex stop calling you sweetheart in front of your parents. Something tightened in my chest. Not jealousy. That would have been absurd. I had known her for 6 minutes. I had no rights. But I knew enough already to dislike any man who used a soft word like a leash. She must have seen something move in my face, because her voice softened. You don't have to. I shouldn't have asked. I just. You seemed steady, and you looked at me like I was a person. Even when you were mortified, that undid me more than the dress had. The dress was strategy. That was just a true thing she said out loud. I set my mug down. The motion felt official. Saturday night. 7. Do I need a suit? Do you own one? I own one that says I had one serious life event and survived it. She tipped her head, considering. That might be exactly the mood, quietly devastating. Don't oversell it, then I underpromise. You set the bar low. I crawl over it. She laughed, quick and bright, and the laugh was different from her speaking voice. The laugh hadn't been to therapy yet. It still ran around outside without a coat. And then her window dropped. Suddenly, violently, with a wooden slam that made the whole frame jump. She yelped, jumped back. I moved before thinking, set my coffee down, knuckles white on the edge of my counter. You okay? She shoved the window back up an inch. It stuck crooked in the frame, hanging like a broken jaw. Through the gap she laughed, breathless and adrenaline spiked. I'm fine. My building is held together by paint and denial. I can fix that. I'm sorry? The window. I can fix it. Her eyes lifted to mine through the rain-streaked glass. You'd come over. With a toolbox. Not a soundtrack. Disappointing. We can renegotiate. She studied me through the broken half of the window. Then she pointed toward the fire escape between our buildings. The same fire escape I had been pretending was not directly connected to her life for 8 months. If I let you come over with your toolbox, Jeffrey, are you going to behave like a gentleman? I looked at the green dress, then at her face, and made myself answer the only way that mattered. Yes, her smile came back. Smaller, warmer. Too bad, she said. I was hoping for at least a little trouble, and then she unlocked the fire escape window all the way. Crossing 12 feet of rainy alley with a toolbox felt absurdly intimate. The grate was slick. One shoe slipped. I caught the rail with my free hand. Below me, the alley smelled like wet brick and the dumpster from the Thai place on the corner. Above me, 3 stories of brownstone climbed into low cloud. Rachel stood inside her apartment, holding the window up, with both hands, green dress catching the warm lamplight. She had thrown a cardigan over her shoulders for the door. Careful, her voice through the gap. I would hate to explain to the paramedics that my neighbor fell because I flirted irresponsibly. You're admitting it was flirting. I'm admitting nothing without legal counsel. I crouched by the frame. Rain ticked against my shoulders. The wood had swollen from years of Portland weather and neglect. One hinge loose. Sash cord frayed. The pulley behind the molding was probably cracked. Easy repair if you knew what to look for. That was the problem with some broken things. From a distance, they looked dramatic. Up close, they mostly needed patience and the right tools and somebody willing to take the time. I could fix the window in maybe 90 minutes. I had a strong suspicion the rest of the night was going to be the harder repair. Can I come in? I said. I need to get at the inside track. She stepped back. Only because you asked like a man who's been housebroken. Her apartment smelled like vanilla candles and basil, and something floral and sharp I was going to forever associate with her skin. There were stacks of sheet music on the upright piano in the corner. A pair of red heels by the couch, kicked off at angles that suggested they had been kicked, not placed. A half-finished mug of tea sat on a book whose title I clocked in a single accidental glance, and then pretended I had not seen. She noticed me pretend. You can look, she said, quieter than before. I'm not fragile. I'm just working on things. I set my toolbox down with more care than it deserved. Aren't we all? Her eyes held mine for a second, and the teasing between us shifted into something slower, like the moment a song changes key without warning. Then she pointed at the window. Fix, handyman. Before I start thinking you came over for my personality, I did come over for your personality, liar. You came over because I wore the dress. The dress made a strong opening argument. She perched on the arm of the couch, one bare foot tucked behind the other. I worked, pried out the failing pulley, measured the new sash cord against the old one, listened to the apartment around me, the hush of a working radiator, the far-off sigh of traffic on Burnside, the soft thud whenever she shifted her weight on the couch arm. She was watching me, the way I sometimes watched a piece of furniture under my own hands. Not judging, just curious so, she said. Jeffrey Lewis, furniture restorer, coffee at night, one tragic suit. What's your damage? I huffed a laugh and kept working. You lead with that often? Only with men I invite in through windows, so a select group, tiny club. Very exclusive. I tightened the hinge. The screwdriver caught. Held. I was engaged. Once, her face didn't move much, but her shoulders did, the smallest drop. Attention without performance. What happened? She left. My voice came out level. I had practiced this in the bathroom mirror once, the year after, until the words sounded like other people's words. Not dramatically. No screaming. No affair that I know of. She just looked at the life we were building and realized she didn't want to live in it with me. I'm sorry. I shrugged. The shrug was a lie. Even I could hear it. It was 2 years ago. Time doesn't make something small. The screwdriver stilled in my hand because most people, by year 2, were ready to give you a deadline. By now, surely, you should be over it by now. Surely, you've had time, surely. Like grief was an oven timer, and they were tired of hearing it ring. Rachel just let the wound exist. I had to take a breath to keep working. What about you? I said quieter, because it felt like a fair exchange. Your ex, she picked at a loose thread on the couch arm. Her face went still in the way that meant she was choosing what to put down on the table. Jason. Jason Ramirez. Charming in public. Exhausting in private. He never hit me. Never cheated. Never did anything clean enough for people to understand why I left. You don't need a courtroom-level reason. Her mouth curved. Sad and grateful at once. Tell that to my mother, I will. If you want, she blinked, you'd argue with my mother. At an engagement party, I restore chairs from the 1800s. I have experience with stubborn antiques. She laughed, out loud, the full laugh, the one without coat or context. She had to cover her mouth with her hand because the sound was too big for the room. I felt absurdly proud, like I had just sanded panel and exposed grain I didn't know was under there. I wanted to hear that laugh again often. Preferably from across a table. Preferably because of something I had said. I tested the window, lifted, lowered, once, twice. Smooth as breath, no more guillotine, my hero, window hero. Very specific category. She hopped off the couch arm, crossed to the window to try it herself. Too close, really. Her shoulder brushed my arm as she reached for the frame. The contact was small, electric, we both noticed. Neither of us moved away. She slid the window up, down, up. Impressive. I'm available for all your minor structural emergencies. Only minor. I turned my head. She was right there. Close enough, I could see a tiny freckle near the corner of her mouth that I had not been able to see from across the alley. Close enough, I could feel the warmth coming off her bare shoulder. Close enough that my voice dropped without permission. Major ones, too. Her fingers rested on the sill. Her smile faded. Not from fear. From attention, Jeffrey. My name in her apartment sounded like an invitation, like a doorknob being turned slowly, and I wanted to kiss her. The want was sudden and inconvenient and absolutely clear, like a tuning fork held to bone. But she had asked me here 6 minutes after catching me accidentally looking. She was wearing a dress for an event involving an ex who used soft words like leashes. I was standing in her living room with a screwdriver in my hand and rain in my hair. The math was wrong. The timing was wrong. The geometry of the moment was wrong. I took half a step back. Her eyes tracked the movement. Gentlemen, trying. Is it difficult right now? Yes, I made myself meet her eyes. Yes, it is. That was the most honest sentence I had said out loud in months. Color rose in her cheeks. She looked away first. But she was smiling. She walked to the kitchen and came back with a hand towel. Instead of handing it to me, she reached up and started drying the rain from my hair herself. The gesture was small, domestic, practical. It almost ruined me. Her knuckles brushed my temple. The towel smelled like clean cotton, and her laundry soap, and something I didn't have a word for yet. I stood very still, letting her fuss, while the repaired window hummed softly with rain behind us. You're very quiet, she said. I'm trying not to do anything stupid. What if I like a little stupid? Then I'm in real trouble. Her laugh, smaller this time, closer. She lowered the towel but didn't step back. Saturday, her voice changed. Took on a careful weight. If you still want to come, I don't want to fake anything cruel. No elaborate lies, no pretending we've been together for a year. What do you want? The question landed heavier than I meant it to. The towel hung loose in her hands. She twisted it without looking. I want to walk in with someone who doesn't make me feel small. And if Jason tries to pull some charming nonsense, I'll let you handle him. Unless you look at me like you want backup, I won't. Not unless you do, and sometimes I'll do. I have occasional bursts of bravery. Mostly between 4 and 4:30, her expression warmed. Maybe we don't call it fake boyfriend. What do we call it? Maybe we call it a first date with witnesses. My heart did something embarrassingly young. A first date with witnesses. 2 phrases I had not put together in 2 years. A first date, I repeated. To make sure it was real out loud. Unless you'd rather sand a credenza, The credenza suddenly feels very patient. We stood there, holding each other's eyes. The apartment quiet around us. The rain steadier now, settling into a long Portland soak that would keep going past midnight. Then Rachel rose on her toes and kissed my cheek. Not my mouth, not yet. Her lips touched just beside the corner of mine, warm and brief, and aimed with enough deliberation that it counted as a promise rather than an accident. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. Payment for services. That window was in worse shape than I thought. Might require a follow-up visit. Greedy, motivated, she walked me to the fire escape, and I climbed back into the rain with my toolbox lighter than it had any right to be. Before I crossed back to my window, she called my name. I looked back. She leaned in the frame, green dress, bare shoulder. A smile that was trouble she had chosen, on purpose, wear the tragic suit, for our first date with witnesses. For me, then she closed the window softly, leaving me outside in the rain. Already wanting Saturday more than was safe, and not yet knowing that the man whose name she had spoken so flatly had a habit of arriving at parties with an envelope in his coat. The next morning the shop smelled like cedar shavings and burned coffee, which is what my grandfather used to call the perfume of a working day. I unlocked the back door at 7:30. 45 minutes earlier than usual. Larry Torres noticed. Of course he did. Larry Torres had been apprenticing under my father since 1985. He was 67 years old, 6'1", with shoulders that had carried teak and walnut up 2 flights of stairs more times than a knee specialist could count. He drank his coffee from a thermos older than my driver's license. He wore the same pair of brown leather suspenders he had been wearing the day my father hired him, although the suspenders had been restitched at least 4 times. He missed nothing. "You're early? I'm always early. You're never this early." He didn't look up from the rocking chair he was clamping. "You hiding from something?" "No, running towards something then." I poured coffee. Did not answer. He smiled around the clamp. "There it is. I should explain here that Larry was not my father. Larry was the closest thing I had to one after Kenneth Lewis collapsed at the same workbench Larry was now leaning against. The bench was over there, by the south wall, under the window with the bad seal. I had not moved it. I would never move it. Some things you keep where they fall because moving them is its own surrender. "What's her name?" Larry said. "Whose name?" "The woman." "There's no woman. Jeffrey." I set the coffee down. Hard. The mug clicked against the wood. "Rachel." "Rachel what? Flores." "She lives across the alley from me." His eyebrows climbed. "The piano teacher." I stopped halfway to the workbench. "How do you know she's a piano teacher?" "She put a flyer up at SIP on Belmont last spring. Beginner piano. Adult students welcome." Margaret was thinking about lessons. Decided her hands were too rheumatic. We kept the flyer. He nodded toward the corkboard by the office door. "Pretty handwriting." I went and looked. Sure enough, behind a yellowing receipt and a calendar from 2022, there was a square of paper with a clean line drawing of a treble clef and the words "Beginner piano, patient instructor, all ages welcome." The phone number had been there for over a year. Rachel's handwriting was small and looped. I would have known it anywhere now. The city was not small. But neighborhoods were. "She invited me to a thing on Saturday," I said. "What kind of thing?" "Her sister's engagement party. Her mother invited her ex." Larry set the clamp down. Slowly. "The way you set down a tool when you don't want it to slip and dent the wood." He looked up at me for the first time that morning. "What's the ex's name?" Something in his voice made the shop feel a degree colder. "Jason." "Jason Ramirez?" A long silence. Larry walked to the office. I followed without being asked. He opened the bottom drawer of the metal filing cabinet, the one that had a piece of duct tape across the lock from 2009, and he pulled out a manila folder soft at the corners from time. He set it on the desk and tapped it twice with one knuckle. "Ramirez," he said. "Your father did a job for that name. Fall of 2018. What kind of job?" "Conference table. 8 seats. Walnut. For an outfit called Ramirez Talent Group. Office down on 15th. And he stiffed your father for $2,000. He let me sit with that. Your father didn't chase it. Said it wasn't worth the lawyer. Said the man would be back when he wanted something pretty, and your father wouldn't take the job. That was your father's version of justice. Refusing to make beautiful things for ugly people." Larry tapped the folder again. "I kept the paperwork. Don't know why. Maybe in case the IRS came knocking. Maybe because your father told me once that paperwork is the only thing in this business that never warps." I picked up the folder. It was heavier than it looked. "He's the ex," I said. "He's the ex? Larry? What kind of man?" He thought about it. He always thought about answers, the way he thought about cuts. Measure twice, the kind who tips loudly so the room hears. The kind who picks where you eat by deciding for the group. The kind who says he's the smartest in the room and then makes sure nobody else gets the chance to speak. He's not dangerous in the way people picture danger. He's the other kind. The kind that doesn't leave bruises. The kind that leaves an outline, the shop quieted around us. Be careful, Jeffrey, I will. No, hear me. Be careful in two directions. For her, and for yourself. Men like that don't get angry when a woman leaves. They get patient, they wait, and they figure out which leg of the chair to kick. I put the folder back in the drawer. I closed it slowly. She asked me to be her +1. That's all. He looked at me the way he had looked at me at my father's funeral. Steady, sad. Already a step ahead. That's never all. I worked until 5. Drove home through wet streets that reflected red and gold from every traffic light. My apartment looked exactly the way I had left it. Empty mug by the stove, toolbox by the door. Stove light still on, because I had not gone back into the kitchen since climbing out the window the night before. I stood at the sink and looked across the alley. Her window was dark, then a light came on. Kitchen. Bare bulb above the stove, same as mine. She walked into the frame, hair piled up. Sweatshirt, big, falling off one shoulder. She filled a kettle. She did not look at my window. She did not need to. She knew I was there the same way I knew she was there. By some sense, the alley had grown in 8 months without our permission. I lifted my hand, a small wave, half embarrassed. She turned, saw me, smiled, lifted her own hand, half a wave, half a salute. Then she pointed at the kettle and mouthed 2 words I had no trouble reading from 12 feet away. Cold night, I nodded. She mimed sliding a cup across the alley, like the cup of tea was going to fly over and arrive at my windowsill. I mimed catching it, sipping. She mimed laughing. It was the dumbest pantomime in the history of dumb pantomimes between 2 adults. I have not stopped thinking about it. Saturday came too fast and too slow. The suit fit worse than I remembered. Charcoal. A little tight in the shoulders, because I had put on 6 pounds of stubborn muscle since the last time I tried to wear it. The collar pinched. The tie I owned was the kind of tie a man buys for a single wedding and then leaves in a drawer for emotional reasons. I stood in front of the mirror and adjusted the knot. The phone buzzed on the counter. Rachel, you dressed? Me? Depends. Are you asking as a date or as a parole officer? Rachel, both. Window. I walked into the kitchen. Across the alley, she stood at her open window in the green dress, her hair pinned up now, a few loose curls escaping at the nape of her neck. She had a glass of something pale in one hand. Wine, maybe. Or courage. She raised it. Turn around. What? Let me see the suit, Louis. I obeyed. Slowly. Rotated like a department store mannequin with mild anxiety. One shoulder, then the other, then the back, then around. When I faced her again, her eyes had traveled across me in a way that made the collar feel less tight, not more. Well, the suit is not tragic. No, it's quietly devastating. I looked down to hide the smile. That sounds dangerous. It is. She leaned against the frame. You clean up well, so do you. I was already clean. You know what I mean. Her mouth softened. For a second the alley disappeared. No rain tonight, although the air was wet and heavy and smelled like leaves rotting on the sidewalks. No accidental voyeurism, no awkward arrangement. Just her, looking at me like she was glad I existed, in a suit. Across from her, 6 minutes before we were both supposed to leave. Meet me downstairs in 10, she said. Before I lose my nerve, I got there in 7. She was already waiting under the awning of her building, holding a small black clutch in both hands like it might fly away. Up close I could see the tiny gold earrings shaped like stars and the steady anxious pulse at the base of her throat. You came early. I didn't want you waiting alone. That's either sweet or a sign you're punctual in an alarming way. Both can be true. She laughed. The tension at her shoulders dropped a 1/4 inch. Then she held out her hand. Not her arm. Her hand. We should practice. For the witnesses, right. Practice. Her fingers slid between mine. Warm. Sure, like she had thought about it. Whatever clever thing I had been planning to say dissolved on the floor of my brain. Holding her hand should not have felt like a line crossed, but it did. A quiet one, a chosen one. The kind of line that you don't notice the second you step over it, because you're too busy looking at the person on the other side. The lift pulled up. We got in. The driver tried to make small talk. I do not remember a single word of what either of us said in that car. I remember the warmth of her palm in mine and the way she squeezed twice, like she was making sure I was still there. The restaurant was in a converted warehouse on 10th, exposed brick and Edison bulbs, and a chalkboard menu with words like reduction and emulsion. Rachel's sister Nicole met us at the door with a hug that nearly took Rachel off her feet. "You brought someone." "I did." Nicole looked me up and down. She had the same warm brown eyes as Rachel, set in a sharper, younger face. The face of a person whose feelings happened on the outside before they reached the brain. "He's got kind eyes. I've been practicing in the mirror," I said. Rachel squeezed my hand. "Don't encourage him." "Too late." Nicole leaned in. "Tell me later. The whole story. Don't leave anything out. Especially the dress. There is no story. There is always a story. I'm getting married. I have a radar for stories." Then Brian Thompson arrived behind her, tall and quiet, a software engineer who looked like he had walked into the wrong wing of the building and decided to live there. He shook my hand. He did not squeeze too hard. He did not squeeze too soft. He shook it like a man who had decided, somewhere in his 30s, that handshakes were not a contest. I liked him on the spot. Their parents came next. Scott Flores was a man in his early 60s, with calluses on his hands that suggested he had not spent his life behind a desk. He shook my hand like he was grateful for any guest who had shown up without drama. "Pamela Flores wore pearls and an expression sharp enough to slice citrus, Jeffrey," she said. The way she said it suggested she had been told my name once and was returning it to me as a receipt. "And how long have you and Rachel known each other?" "Long enough for him to fix my window," Rachel answered. Pamela blinked. "Your window." "It was sticking," I said. Easy voice, workshop voice. The voice I used with clients who didn't understand why a repair cost what it cost. Old buildings need patience. Rachel's thumb brushed mine under the cover of our joined hands. "A thank you, maybe. Or a steady yourself." It worked either way. For 20 minutes we were almost normal. We drank champagne. We admired Nicole's ring. Rachel told me which cousins were safe and which ones treated family gatherings like a competitive sport. There was a great aunt who had once thrown a dinner roll across a Thanksgiving table because someone said the wrong thing about Reagan. There was an uncle who would corner me about gold prices if I made eye contact for more than 3 seconds. I made a mental list of escape routes. Then a hand landed on my shoulder. "You must be the new one." The voice was warm, friendly, practiced. I turned. Jason Ramirez was taller than I expected from Larry's description. He had a face that knew it photographed well, a watch that wanted to be noticed, and a smile preloaded for a room. He had timed his entrance for the exact moment a server passed with a tray of champagne, so that he could pluck a glass on his way over and pretend it was incidental. "Jason," he said, hand extended. I shook it. His grip was firm in the way of men who treated every greeting as a contest. I matched it, once, then let go first. Larry had taught me that. Don't play their game. Don't refuse it either. Win on different terms, Jeffrey. "And how do you two know each other?" Rachel's thumb brushed mine again. I could feel her gathering breath next to me. "He's my date," she said. "Not neighbor. Not cover story. Not emotional support, anything." The word landed in the middle of the room and stayed there. Jason's smile adjusted by maybe 2 millimeters. The kind of adjustment most people in the room would miss. I didn't miss it. He was a man who took inventory. He had just put a new item on the shelf. Date. He let the word sit. "How exciting." "It is, actually," Rachel said. "And what is it you do, Jeffrey?" "He restores furniture," Rachel answered before I could speak. Her voice was bright, pleasant, but the brightness was a wall, not a welcome. "He owns a workshop in the East Side. 3 generations. His grandfather started it." Jason's eyebrows lifted in mild theatrical interest. "A craftsman." He said the word the way you say the word organic at a steakhouse. Like a small, faintly amused compliment that was not, on closer reading, a compliment. "Beautiful work, I'm sure." "It is," Rachel said. "I'll have to come by the shop sometime." "We take walk-ins," I said. I meant it as a joke. He didn't take it that way. His eyes did a small, polite recalibration. He was a man who didn't expect to be answered. "Well," he said to Rachel, with the soft, casual easiness of someone resuming a conversation that had been interrupted by something small like a sneeze. "Rachel, I do need to talk to you tonight. After the speeches. Some paperwork we need to go over." "About your work?" The temperature at our edge of the room dropped a full degree. Rachel did not let go of my hand. "We can talk Monday," she said. "It won't take long. I have things at the office that need a signature this week. Some of them are time-sensitive. Monday, Jason." He looked at her, long enough that other people noticed. Then he smiled, the smile working overtime now to look casual, of course. "Monday," he turned to me. He extended a hand again, although we had just shook one. I shook it again. Because that was the rule of the room, Jeffrey. Wonderful to meet you. Likewise. He drifted toward the bar. He did not, I noticed, drift in a straight line. He drifted in an arc that took him past Pamela, who lit up at him like a porch light, and put his hand briefly on her elbow and bent to say something that made her laugh. Rachel exhaled. Slow, controlled, I'm sorry, she said. Quiet. Just for me. For what? For all of that. You don't have to apologize for him. I'm apologizing for inviting you into him. I turned, just enough that my shoulder shielded her from the rest of the room. I lifted our joined hands, brushed my thumb across her knuckles. The gold band on my pinky, my father's wedding ring, the one I still wore for reasons I did not always have words for, caught the candlelight. You didn't invite me into him, I said. You invited me to stand next to you. That's a different sentence. Her eyes shone. She did not blink fast. She held it. Quietly devastating, she said. Don't oversell it, she laughed. A small, watery, real laugh, and it was the best sound in the room. Across the floor, Jason set his champagne glass on a high top and reached, casually, into the inside pocket of his suit jacket. He drew out an envelope, folded once. The kind of envelope that wasn't a card and wasn't a check and wasn't any of the soft, harmless things an envelope can be at an engagement party. He set it on the edge of the high top, where it could be seen. He did not open it. He did not give it to anyone. He just placed it there, the way a man places a chess piece, and then turned and rejoined the conversation with Pamela, like the envelope had nothing to do with him. Rachel's hand went cold in mine. What's in it? I said. Quiet. Careful. She watched the envelope sit on the high top under the warm yellow light of an Edison bulb. She watched her mother laugh at something Jason had said. She watched the candle on the table, next to it flicker in the draft from the kitchen door. Then she leaned in, her mouth almost at my ear, her breath warm and unsteady. I don't know exactly, she said, but I'm scared. Outside, far above the warehouse roof, the rain was starting again. The envelope sat on the high top like a small animal that had decided not to move. Rachel didn't look at it directly. That was the giveaway. A person who didn't care about a thing glanced at it. A person who cared made the whole room into a map and put a wall around that one corner of the map and walked carefully past it without ever turning her head. I learned that in 8 seconds. Just by watching her not look. Bathroom, she said, her voice steady, her hand cold. With me, with you, with me. Which is how I ended up standing in the narrow hallway outside the women's restroom at a wine bar in a converted warehouse in northwest Portland, holding the small black clutch of a woman I had known for 48 hours, while she leaned against the brick wall and tried to slow her own breathing. I have to tell you something, she said. Okay, and it's going to sound bigger than it is, or smaller than it is. I haven't decided which. Okay, I lied a little. About what I do, I waited. She closed her eyes, opened them, pushed her hair back from her temple. A few loose curls had finally surrendered to gravity. She didn't fix them. I teach piano. That part is true. 5 students, Tuesdays and Thursdays after school. A grown woman named Diane who is trying to learn Clair de Lune to impress her therapist. That's real, okay, but I also write music. For ads, for small films. There's a coffee company in town that uses one of my pieces. There's a state tourism commercial that ran last year that opens with 30 seconds of something I wrote on this couch in pajamas at 2 in the morning. Rachel, wait. Let me finish or I won't. Finish. She breathed in, held it, let it out. 2 years ago, when Jason and I started dating, I signed a management contract with his company, Ramirez Talent Group. It covers performance rights for 3 original compositions. He gets 35% of the live licensing revenue on those 3 pieces, in perpetuity, unless the contract is dissolved by mutual agreement. Unless, and he won't agree. He won't agree. I let that sit. What's in the envelope? I don't know exactly. But it's either a renewal he wants me to sign tonight to make me feel like the night belongs to him, or it's a draft of something worse. Worse, she nodded. Just once. Worse, she said, because 3 months ago I wrote him a letter telling him I was done. Done. Not just romantically, professionally. I asked to buy out the contract. I offered him money I don't really have. He answered with a long, friendly email about how much he valued our creative partnership and how excited he was about the next phase. Like I had asked him about a vacation, not a release. Rachel, I know, hey, I know. I took a small step closer. Not crowding. Just present. Look at me, she looked. We don't sign anything tonight, I said. We don't take the envelope. We don't open the envelope. We don't engage the envelope. The envelope is a chair in the corner of a room. We walk past it. Easy for you. The envelope isn't about your work. Then we walk past it together, the smallest crack in her face. Not collapse, not yet. Just a hairline. Why are you nice? I'm not, I'm furious. I'm just keeping it organized, she laughed. Wet, surprised. The laugh of a person who had not expected to laugh. You, she said, almost a whisper. You are doing very well in a very weird night, low bar. I crawled over it. I remember. Now I tip my head toward the dining room. We go back. We smile. We make toasts. We do not look at the envelope. If your mother says anything, I will be exceptionally well-mannered. If your sister cries, I will hand her a napkin. If your father needs a man to stand next to him and nod about gold prices, I will nod, deal. And if Jason comes near you again, yeah, we do not run. We do not engage. We just refuse to shrink. She closed her eyes. Refuse to shrink, she said, almost to herself. I'm putting that on a sticky note, don't. It'll get peeled off by spring. Then I'll put it on the wall. Where the paint comes off if you try. That's commitment, she straightened, smoothed her dress, pushed a curl behind her ear. She gathered something back into herself that she had set down for a second to breathe. It was the most graceful thing I had ever seen a person do in a hallway with a sticky floor. She took the clutch back, tucked her hand into the crook of my arm. +1, she said. +1. When we walked back into the room, the speeches had begun. Nicole and Brian were standing in front of the fireplace, and Brian was reading from a folded piece of paper, and Nicole was already crying, the good crying, the laughing crying. Brian's voice was soft and steady and slightly nasal. He talked about the first time Nicole made him a sandwich. He talked about the second time she made him a sandwich, which was the first time he realized he was in love with her. He talked about her capacity to be unreasonably joyful about small things. The way she greeted dogs on the sidewalk. The way she announced sunsets like she had personally arranged them. The room sighed. A great aunt blew her nose into a cocktail napkin. I felt Rachel breathe out beside me. The kind of breath you take when somebody else's good news lets you rest your own bad news on a shelf for a minute. Then Pamela took the floor. Pamela Flores was a small woman with a big posture. She held her champagne flute by the stem like the bowl was something fragile she had been told once not to touch. She tapped a fingernail against the glass twice. The room hushed without being asked. My daughters, she said. She paused. She looked at Nicole. She looked at Rachel. My daughters have very different ideas about love. Nicole has always known what she wanted. Brian, when she met you, I think she had decided about you within 20 minutes. Laughter. Brian blushed. Rachel. The pause. Long enough that two people in the back row shifted their weight. Rachel has always been the careful one, the thoughtful one, the one who reads 3 articles before she buys a toaster. The room laughed lightly. Rachel did not, and I just want to say to Brian, and to my own husband Scott, who is somewhere in this room avoiding direct eye contact with me right now. Scott, behind us, raised a hand. The room laughed harder, to say to all the good men in our lives that we are very, very lucky to be loved by people who are willing to be patient with us. Smattering of applause. Glasses lifted, and I just want to say, while we're all here together, that I am proud of both of my girls. For the people they've chosen, and for the people they've given another chance to. It took me 3 seconds to catch the phrasing. Another chance. Rachel's hand on my arm went tight enough that I felt her nails. Across the room, Jason raised his glass an inch higher than necessary, toward us. Toward Rachel. Not toward Nicole. He drank, the applause died. The room moved on. The DJ in the corner started a slow song. People drifted toward the small wooden dance floor by the kitchen pass. Servers carried trays of stuffed mushrooms. Somebody's toddler ran past in pajamas patterned with rocket ships. Rachel did not let go of my arm. Tell me you heard that? I heard it. Tell me I'm not imagining what she meant. You're not imagining. She doesn't even know she did it. She knows. She thinks she's being kind. She might be. To herself, Rachel didn't laugh. I took her hand, walked her toward the dance floor. 3 of her cousins were already there, swaying badly, having too much fun for the song that was playing. Nicole and Brian were near the center, foreheads almost touching, doing the slow, embarrassed shuffle that engaged couples do when the room is watching them. I stopped at the edge of the floor. Dance with me, Jeffrey, dance with me, right here, where everyone can see. You can't dance badly, but with conviction. That is my favorite style of anything. I led her out before either of us could think too hard. Her hand on my shoulder, mine at her waist. Careful at first, like asking permission. Then her body settled against mine the way water settles into a glass. Like it had been waiting for the shape. Why are you doing this? She said, quietly. into the small space between our faces. Because the room is watching. That's not the reason. No. What's the reason? I thought about a lot of things in the half-second before I answered. I thought about my father, who once told me at a wedding that the best thing a man can do in any room is be the still place in it. I thought about Larry, who had taught me how to hold a clamp without warping the wood. I thought about how Rachel had said the word date, and the way Jason's smile had adjusted by 2 millimeters. Because you asked me to come, I said. And I'm not going to half show up. Her eyes filled. She didn't blink them clear. She didn't hide them, quietly devastating, she said. Again. Like a charm she was using to keep her hands steady. I almost kissed her then. I didn't. Because Pamela was watching from the edge of the room, and because the moment didn't belong to anyone but us, and I did not want to share it with a mother who would file it for later use. The song ended. Another began, slower. The DJ knew his job. I felt Rachel breathe. I'm going to do something, she said. Okay, I'm going to kiss you in front of all of them. Okay, is that all right? It's more than all right. It's not for them. It's not to make him jealous. It's not for the speech she just gave. It's not for any of that. Then what's it for? It's for me. She rose up the smallest fraction. Her mouth met mine in the middle of the dance floor. Soft. Not a stage kiss. Not a performance. A kiss like a yes spoken into a microphone. For one stunned second, I forgot how to breathe. Then I kissed her back. My hand firmer at her waist. Her hand sliding to the back of my neck. A few people went still. A few people smiled. A few people, including Toddler in rocket ship pajamas, were entirely unbothered. The toddler was, in fact, hitting a balloon with both hands and yelling. I have never been more grateful for a toddler in my life. When she pulled back, her forehead rested against mine. Hi, she said. Hi. That happened. It did. I'm going to need a second. Take two. She laughed into my collarbone. Then over her shoulder by the bar, I saw Jason. He had been watching. He had not adjusted his face by 2 millimeters this time. He had adjusted it by the whole map. His smile was still on, but the smile was gone. The smile was a switch he had flicked, not a feeling. He turned. He walked slowly, casually, toward the high top where Brian was standing alone, refilling a champagne flute. The envelope was still on the high top. Jason picked it up as he passed, casual. Like he had set down his keys and was on his way out except he didn't walk out. He walked to Brian. I felt the next 10 seconds coming the way you feel a sneeze coming. There was no preventing it. I could only decide where my body would be when it landed. Stay here, I said. No, Rachel. No, Jeffrey. I'm not staying anywhere. Not anymore. She took my hand. We walked, together, toward the bar, not fast, not slow. The exact pace of two people who had practiced. Jason was leaning in to Brian when we arrived, his shoulder almost touching Brian's, the envelope tucked under his arm now, like an afterthought. His voice low enough to sound private, loud enough to carry to the cluster of cousins at the next high top. I'm just saying, man. Some people get really swept up in the idea of being chosen. I would know. Brian had not yet decided what kind of room he was in. I'm sorry, Rachel. She loves attention more than she loves people. It's not her fault. It's how she was raised. I just wouldn't want you and Nicole walking into the next year with a wrong picture. Brian set down the champagne bottle. Excuse me. No. I'm the family friend nobody's allowed to be honest anymore, Jason, Rachel said. He turned. All innocence. 3 seconds too late. Oh, the smile. The smile reloaded, Rachel. I didn't see you. Yes, she said. You did. There was a silence. It had weight. It was the kind of silence that turns a room. This, Rachel said, is my sister's engagement party. You do not get to bring your little theories about love into it. Because you are angry, I stopped listening to them, Rachel. Come on, you don't get to come on me. Not anymore. Not in this room. I'm a guest of your mother's. She'll get over it, he laughed. Once. He looked around the room as if to find an audience. Half the cousins were already watching. A great uncle, holding a plate of cheese, had stopped chewing. Sweetheart. It was the word Larry had warned me about without warning me about it. Soft. Used as a leash. Used here, in this room, in this dress, in front of her family, to remind her of a version of herself she had outgrown. Her hand tightened in mine. Don't what? Don't sweetheart me. It's just a word. It's never just a word. Brian stepped slightly forward. His shoulders were tighter now. He had decided, somewhere in the last 40 seconds, that he was going to be in this conversation whether he liked it or not, Jason. I think you should head out. Are you serious? I am. I'm here for Nicole. Behind me, Nicole crossed the room. She slid in beside Brian. She did not look like the woman who had been crying 10 minutes ago. I wasn't consulted on your invitation, she said. Pamela invited me. and I am uninviting you. Right now, Pamela appeared at my elbow. I had not heard her come over. Mothers, in my experience, traveled in silence when the wrong thing was about to happen in their house. Girls, she said. Low, tight. Not here. Not now. Yes, here, Rachel said, without turning. And yes, now, Rachel, Mom, honey, this conversation should happen privately. No, one word. Sharp as a struck match, I spent a year making myself smaller so everyone else could be comfortable. I'm done. The room had stopped pretending not to listen. The DJ, an angel of a man, lowered the volume on the slow song. The toddler in pajamas had gone quiet. Somewhere, somebody's phone camera turned on, although I would not learn that until later. Jason looked at me, just once. The look was specific. It said, "This is your fault." I gave him nothing. I had learned, very young, in my father's shop, that some men want a reaction more than they want a win. The trick is to refuse the reaction. The trick is to be the still place in the room. Brian repeated himself. Quieter. Worse out, Jason. Jason held the envelope up. Loose, almost playful, almost a shrug, Rachel. We do still need to talk, sooner than later. There's a tight window on some of this material, Monday, Rachel said. With my lawyer, a muscle in his jaw shifted. You have a lawyer now. I have a lawyer now. Since when? Since this morning. That was new. That was new to me, too. I felt her squeeze my hand once. Jason nodded. Slowly. He set the envelope back on the high top. Open palm, casual. The chess piece. Returned to its square. Monday, he said. Have your guy ready? She's a woman. Have your woman ready? Stephanie Harris. He blinked. He had not been expecting a name. A name is a different thing from a threat. He recovered fast. Good firm. The smile flexed back on. Smart choice. He kissed Pamela on the cheek on his way out. Of course he did. Pamela accepted the kiss the way you accept a doorknob in the dark. Reflects more than choice. By the time she registered what had happened, he was already at the door, throwing on his coat, saying loud, warm goodbyes to a pair of distant cousins who had no idea what they had just walked into. The door closed behind him. The room exhaled. The DJ, sensing his moment, pushed the volume back up. Nicole turned and threw her arms around Rachel. Hard. The kind of hug you give a person you have just watched do something you wished you had done in 3rd grade and never managed. I love you. I love you. I'm sorry I made a scene at your party. You made the best scene. He brought paperwork to my engagement. He's the scene, then Pamela. Rachel, Mom, we will discuss this, we will, in a calm place. Yes, I just don't want you to throw away. Stop, Pamela stopped. For the first time all night, her posture dropped, a 1/4 inch. From a woman who never dropped, we will talk, Rachel said. Softer we will, but not tonight, and not here, and not with Jason as a footnote in the conversation. He is not part of this family anymore. You don't get to keep inviting him into rooms I am in. Eleanor, it hit me sideways. Eleanor, a name I had not heard, a name I would file later. Rachel's eyes filled. She did not let the water fall. It's Rachel, Mom. It's been Rachel since I was 9, I know. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, honey. Okay, Mom. Pamela touched her cheek. Then she turned away, walked toward the bar, asked for a glass of water, stood with her back to the room. Scott, who had been somewhere in the room avoiding direct eye contact with his wife, materialized next to me with the casual stealth of a man who had spent 40 years married to a woman with strong opinions. Jeffrey, sir. Walk you both out, sir. He did not say anything in the elevator. He did not say anything in the lobby. At the door, he stopped, and he turned, and he put a hand on my shoulder, and he looked me in the eye the way a man looks at another man when he has decided to risk being clear. Thank you for tonight. I didn't do anything. You stood next to her. You didn't flinch. You didn't puff up. You let her say her own piece. She didn't need help. She did. Just not the kind men usually offer. He let go of my shoulder. He went back inside. Through the glass door, I saw him walk straight to Pamela. He didn't touch her arm. He didn't scold her. He just stood beside her at the bar, the way I had stood beside Rachel on the dance floor. And after a minute, Pamela leaned her head, an inch, onto his shoulder. We stepped out onto 10th. The rain had stopped. The street was wet and shining. A streetcar slid past, half empty, lit yellow inside like a moving lantern. 3 blocks south, the lights of the Burnside Bridge made a long row of pearls across the river. Rachel walked. She did not let go of my hand. We did not talk for a block. Then she stopped under a street lamp outside a closed bookstore. Powell's had its own block, gigantic and locked at this hour, but this was a smaller place with poetry in the window and a hand-painted sign that said open at 10 in the morning. See you then. I'm shaking, she said. I took off my suit jacket, draped it over her shoulders. The jacket was huge on her. She drowned in it. She did not look smaller. She looked exactly like a woman who had decided to be larger than the man who had once tried to make her into a contract. Cold, number-free. The word landed bigger than it was. I wanted to kiss her then. I waited, because I was already learning the shape of her silences. A breath she needed to take by herself was not a breath I would walk into. She stepped closer. "This is the part," she said, "where you kiss me, Jeffrey." Oh, thank God. Her laugh broke against my mouth as I kissed her. It was different from the kiss in the restaurant. No witnesses, no mother, no ex, just wet pavement and distant traffic, and Rachel's hand sliding under the open collar of my shirt, as if she had been waiting all night to touch skin. I backed her gently against the bricks of the bookstore. One hand at her waist, the other braced beside her head. She kissed like she had decided not to apologize for wanting. Soft, then hungry, careful. Then not. When we finally separated, she kept her fingers curled in my tie. Quietly devastating, she said. "Horse, you're revising your review. Upgrading it." I smiled against her temple. Good. We found a diner 2 blocks from my apartment, because neither of us wanted the night to end. The place was called the Roxy. It had been there since 1983. It served fries and milkshakes at all hours. The walls were red vinyl and signed 8x10s of bands that had played in Portland in the 90s. The cook behind the counter wore a paper hat. He yelled at the waitress in a friendly way, and the waitress yelled back, and the radio played Stevie Wonder. And Rachel laughed for the first time in an hour without a hand near her mouth. She sat across from me in my suit jacket, green dress underneath, hair coming loose from its pins. The lipstick mostly gone. She looked less like a woman dressed for a party and more like a woman returning to herself. We ordered fries. We ordered 2 milkshakes. We ordered them like teenagers with better credit scores. "So," she said, stealing a fry from my plate, although she had her own. "You kissed me in a restaurant and against a bookstore. Are you always this literary?" I adapt to my surroundings. "What happens near a hardware store? You'll have to find out." She bit her milkshake straw. The straw went pink. "Tell me something I don't know," she said. "Stephanie Harris." "Ah, since this morning. I called her yesterday. We met this morning. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to walk into the party leaning on you." "Rachel, I know. That was a brave move. It was a small move." I'm trying to remember the difference. I drank coffee. She watched me drink coffee. The waitress put a basket of fries between us and walked off muttering about ketchup, which she had forgotten and would bring with a flourish in 90 seconds. "Tell me about Stephanie Harris." "She's about 50. She is the size of a hummingbird. She wears reading glasses on a chain. Her office is in a building on 10th with a bagel place on the ground floor. She has been doing music rights law in Portland for 23 years. She used to sing in a punk band. There are pictures. I love her already. She told me 3 things at the end of our meeting. "Tell me." Rachel set the milkshake down. 1. She told me to find the original master file of the demo of Window Light. The piece Jason has been telling people he co-wrote. The piece he hasn't actually co-written. I have it. 2:30 in the morning on the 14th of March, 2 years ago. Time-stamped. 2 months before I even met Jason at a fundraiser. 2. She said the contract I signed has a clause that lets it dissolve if I can prove material misrepresentation by the manager, which is a fancy way of saying, if Jason has been telling people he wrote things he did not write, we can argue the contract should be voided. 3. She breathed in, out. 3. She said she has had 3 other clients walk into her office over the last 5 years, with nearly identical stories, about the same man, the same company, the same envelope routine. I set my mug down. Slowly. 3. She wants to file. She wants to be ready to file. She wants me to bring her the master file by Tuesday. And she wants me to write her a timeline of contact. Every email, every text, every voicemail, every dinner, every hand on my shoulder. You can do that. I have to do that. I reached across the table. She put her palm in mine. "This is real," she said. "Quiet. Yes, it's also new and strange. And started with you accidentally seeing more of my evening routine than planned. I will spend years apologizing if necessary. Years." Her eyebrow lifted. I realized what I had said. She did too. The air between us warmed by 3 degrees. I didn't mean. I liked it. My heart did one of those things hearts do. She looked down at our hands. Her thumb moved across my knuckles in a slow figure 8. "I'm scared too," she said. "Jason taught me that wanting affection was needy and wanting space was cruel. I don't always know how to ask for things without feeling guilty. Ask me anyway. I might not get it right the first time. I want to learn you." Her eyes lifted. "That," she said, "may be the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me in a diner." I was aiming for top 5. You're smug now, I had a milkshake. I'm powerful, she laughed. The laugh wrapped around me like a borrowed coat. We walked home slowly after midnight. The clouds had broken up. Stars were thin and unreliable, but they were there. We did not talk about Jason. We talked about Nicole as a kid. We talked about Stevie Wonder. We talked about my father's shop and the smell of cedar and the way Larry insisted on suspenders. At her building door, she hesitated, still in my jacket. Come up, she said, for coffee. Maybe to sit on the couch. Maybe because I don't want to be alone yet. Every sensible thought in my body went quiet at once. I cupped her cheek, brushed my thumb near that small freckle by her mouth. Then I'll come up. Her apartment, at night, was warmer than I remembered. She kicked off her heels with the groan of a woman who had been ignoring her feet for 4 hours. She made coffee that neither of us needed. We sat on the couch close enough that her knee rested against mine. After a while, she leaned into me. I put my arm around her. She settled in the way trust is physical. Her hair smelled like rain. Her breathing slowed. I had fun tonight, she murmured, even with the scene. Especially after, you looked proud of me, by the way. I was. I am. She tilted her face up, kissed me, slow, sweet. Then she put her head against my chest, and we stayed that way until the coffee went cold. At 1:17 in the morning, my phone buzzed on the table. I looked at it. I should not have looked at it, but I looked at it. Unknown number. Stay away from Rachel. Ask her what she did to me. Ask her what she costs. I read it once. I felt my jaw lock. I read it twice. Rachel had not opened her eyes. Her breathing had not changed. Her cheek was warm against my shirt. She was, for the first time and I would later learn how many months, asleep against another human being. I tipped the phone face down on the side table. I did not move. I tightened my arm. Whatever Jason wanted, he could wait until morning. Tonight, I was choosing her. Morning arrived gray, soft, Portland's favorite color. Rachel woke up with her cheek against my chest. One hand curled into the cotton of my shirt like she had filed a claim and refused to amend it. For 5 minutes I didn't move. Then she stirred. Her eyes opened, found mine. Warmed hi, did I drool on you? A gentleman never tells. So yes, a little? She groaned, hid her face against my chest. I laughed. She pinched my side without lifting her head. For a while that was all we were. 2 people on a couch, tangled in the quiet after a night that had changed shape around us. No fake date, no family performance, no ex-boyfriend taking up space. The sun put a long stripe across the rug in front of us. The radiator clicked. Somebody, 3 floors down, was learning the violin and giving the violin a hard time. Then my phone buzzed on the table. She felt me tense. What is it? I reached, hesitated, turned the screen. 2 of these. One last night at 1:17, one an hour ago. Different numbers. She read them. Stay away from Rachel. Ask her what she did to me. Ask her what she costs. Ask her about the lawsuit. Ask her about the song that wasn't hers. The softness left her face. That, she said, is Jason, I figured. He does this. After a fight, he says something cruel. He waits for me to panic and explain myself. Do you want to? Her eyes lifted. No, she said. I want pancakes. I smiled slow. That is an excellent answer. And after pancakes, I want to block him. Maybe tell my sister. Maybe tell my mother to stop giving him access to me. Big morning. Very. I brushed her knuckles. Then her face went still. Different still. Jeffrey. Yeah. The second message. Yeah. The song that wasn't hers. He's going to say that. He's going to start saying that. Stephanie, we're going to call her. We're going to call her on Monday. Today we make pancakes. We make pancakes. She moved to get up. Paused. Looked back. Jeffrey, I don't want you to become my shield. I want you to be my choice. The scent settled inside me like a key turning. Then choose me. For pancakes, she laughed. Wet. Real. The laugh that had not been to therapy yet. Done. We made pancakes in her tiny kitchen, with too much vanilla and not enough coordination. She wore my wrinkled dress shirt over the green dress, sleeves rolled to the elbow, because she claimed it was culinary armor. I burned the first pancake hard enough that the smoke alarm registered a complaint, and she climbed onto a chair with sheet music in her hand and fanned the smoke detector with a brisk rhythm that I recognized after a second as the chorus of a Smokey Robinson song. I caught her by the waist as she swayed, steadying, just steadying. We both stopped laughing. Her hands rested on my shoulders. Mine stayed at her hips. Morning light traced her cheek, her mouth, the place where nerves and courage lived together in her eyes. I don't want this to be only because last night was intense. It isn't. You're sure? I was sure before Jason sent a single text. She swallowed. When you opened your window and asked if the dress was too much. That early, I'm not saying I was rational. No, she smiled. You were standing there holding coffee like a guilty raccoon. And you still invited me over. I liked your face, my face, your guilty, kind, handsome raccoon face. I kissed her. Because there was no possible response better than that. After breakfast, she sat cross-legged on the kitchen floor with her phone. Blocked Jason's number, then both of the unknown numbers from the night before. Then she called Nicole. They spoke for 12 minutes. Nicole, on the other end, swore creatively for 3 of them. Brian, somewhere in the background, made supportive sounds. Then Rachel called Pamela. I went to the window. I gave her privacy. Across the alley, my own apartment looked oddly distant. My mug was still beside the stove. My tools sat by the door. My life was still there. But I was not the same man who had stood at that window 3 nights earlier, careful and half awake in his own routine. No, Mom, Rachel said behind me. Not loud, steady. I'm not confused. I'm not being dramatic. And I am not discussing Jason anymore. Pause. I know you love me. But you don't get to keep inviting people into my life just because you miss who I used to be. Pause. I love you too. I'll see you next Sunday. She hung up. She did not move for a long second. I crossed the room, sat down on the floor beside her, did not crowd. Just there, she didn't cry. No? She usually does. I usually do. Neither of us did. That might be progress. It might be exhaustion. Could be both. She leaned her shoulder against mine. On Monday morning, Rachel went to see Stephanie Harris. I went to the shop. Larry was waiting for me with 2 cups of coffee from the place on Belmont. He set one of them on the workbench. He did not look up from the chair he was clamping. So. Was it bad? It was bad. And then it was good. And then it got complicated. Tell me the complicated part, I told him. About the envelope. About Jason at Brian's shoulder. About Rachel's no. About the kiss in the restaurant. About the kiss against the bookstore. About the texts. About the lawyer named Stephanie Harris. About the master file. About the 3 other clients. He listened without interruption. Larry's listening was a thing he did with his whole face. His eyes went still. His jaw went still. The clamp in his hand did not move. When I finished, he set the clamp down and walked to the office without saying a word. He came back with the folder that had been in the drawer since 2018. He laid it on the workbench between us. This, he said, is gonna come in handy, Larry. $2,000, Jeffrey. 8 chairs and a table. Walnut. Signed contract. Cancelled deposit check. The original signed change order. 3 emails from his office assistant promising payment by Christmas. Notarized. Why notarized? Because your father did not believe a man who would not put his name in front of a notary. Why are you giving this to me now? Because that woman has a lawyer. Lawyers eat paper. This is paper. I picked the folder up. Heavier than I remembered. Larry, you knew, the day I told you his name. You knew this would matter. He sipped his coffee. Men like that, he said. Don't stop being men like that. That was all he said. It was, I would think later, one of the truer things he ever said to me. Tuesday, Rachel sent me a single text from Stephanie Harris's office. We have the demo. We have the email trail. We have 3 witnesses willing to file declarations. We are getting ready. I sent back. Larry has paperwork from 2018. A breach of contract by Jason's company. Notarized. He says paper eats men like him for breakfast. A pause. 3 dots, then. I love your shop already, then a heart. Just the one heart. Not a row of them, not an emoji explosion, just one. Like she had thought about it. Wednesday afternoon, a black Mercedes pulled into the shop yard. I felt it before I saw it. The sound of the tires on Nogrol was wrong. Most of our customers drove pickups. Subarus, if they were the polite kind. Vans, if they were a restaurant. A black Mercedes on our gravel was a knock at the door from a person you did not invite. I was at the back, finishing the underside of a coffee table. Larry was at the front. I heard him stand. I heard the door open. I heard him say, very quietly, the way you speak to a dog before you know if it bites. Help you. I came out wiping varnish off my hands with a rag. Jason was already in the doorway. He had not stepped inside. He had not been invited. He stood on the threshold the way men like him stand on thresholds, half in, half out, ready to claim either side. He smiled at me. Hello, Jeffrey, Jason, beautiful shop. Thanks. Mind if I come in? I looked at Larry. Larry's hand was on the edge of a length of cedar leaning against the wall. He was not holding it like a piece of wood. He was holding it like he wanted to be sure of where it was. No, I said. Talk from there. He laughed. He did the small huff of a man who was not used to being told where to stand, and had decided to find it charming. All right, he kept smiling. I wanted to come by because I think we got off on the wrong foot. Saturday was hectic. Pamela was emotional. Nicole was already upset about catering. I don't know if you saw, but the salmon canapes were not what the venue promised. I'd like to propose a reset, a clean slate. Between us, why? He tipped his head, as if I were a slow client at a presentation. Because I don't want what is frankly a private business matter between me and Rachel to become a problem for you. Or your shop. Or your. His eyes flicked past me. The walls. The benches. My father's photograph above the lathe. He searched for the right diminishment. Your operation here. I've thought about it. I'm willing to make Rachel a clean offer. I drop the management contract. I sign over the performance rights. She gets full creative control. Everybody walks away happy. I'll even waive my own consult fees retroactively. That's real money. That's a gesture. What do you want? He held up his hands. Easy, casual, dinner. One dinner. With me. So she can say a real goodbye. Closure. The kind two adults owe each other. I almost laughed. The almost was loud in my own ears. Out, I said. Jeffrey, I'm not having this conversation. You don't get to barter dinner for paperwork. You don't get to make her sit across from you for an hour to feed your. I borrowed his pause back at him. Your operation? He stopped smiling. The smile was still on his face. The smile had just gone elsewhere. The smile was a sign hung on an empty store. All right, he nodded. He looked at the room. He looked for half a second too long at my father's photograph. Your father did some work for me. Years back. Did he ever mention it? No. Funny. I always wondered if he would. He turned. He walked, slow and easy, back to the Mercedes. He opened the door. He looked back, hand on the frame. Have a good week, Jeffrey. Out he smiled again. The smile was a small flag. He drove away. The gravel settled. Larry, behind me, exhaled. He came here to scare you, I know. He didn't. He did. A little's allowed. He set the cedar back against the wall. I called Rachel. She picked up on the second ring. Jason came to the shop. She was quiet for 2 beats. Then, are you okay? Yes, Larry. Also yes. He didn't come in. He stood in the doorway. He tried to trade dinner for the contract. Of course he did. He mentioned my father. The line went very still. What did he say? He asked if my father ever told me he did for him. Jeffrey, it was a flex. It didn't land. It did land. Some, she breathed out. I'm coming to the shop. You don't have to. I want to. Then come. She came. She walked into the shop 40 minutes later in jeans, a sweater, hair in a low knot, no makeup. And she looked exactly like a woman who had spent the morning in a lawyer's office. And the odd of writing a timeline of every email she had ever received from a man who used her last name as if it belonged to him. Larry stood up to greet her, wiped his hand on his apron, shook her hand the way he shook everybody's hand. Firm, brief, eye contact. Rachel, Larry, heard, lot, so have I. He smiled, almost shy. He did not smile at people he did not like. Margaret, his wife, was going to hear about this within the hour. With the same casual delivery, he used to announce small acts of grace. Margaret's gonna want to meet you. I'd like that. She makes a chicken pot pie. I will buy whatever ticket I have to buy. That made him laugh. Soft into his coffee. Rachel turned to me, looked around the shop, the benches, the clamps, the bandsaw with the bright yellow guard, my father's photograph above the lathe. Show me, she said. I showed her. I walked her past the racks of stacked maple, the drawer of dovetail jigs my grandfather had bought in 1962 and never replaced, the wall where my father had drawn his height every Christmas as a kid, until 1973, when he stopped growing at 5'11.5" and refused to admit it. The patch of floor where the lathe used to be, the patch where it sat now, the window with the bad seal where my mother used to sit on a folding chair with a thermos of coffee and watch Kenneth work. She listened. She didn't fill the silences. At my father's photograph, she stopped. The photo was black and white. Kenneth Lewis in 1985. Standing next to Larry, the two of them in front of a long banquet table they had just finished. Both grinning. Larry's hair still dark. Kenneth's shirt rolled to the elbows. Both of them sawdust dusted up to the forearms. He's handsome. He's the best man you'll never meet. Her fingers touched the corner of the frame. I'm sorry. For what? That he can't be there at your wedding. I went very still. It came out so quietly, so natural. Like she had said the day of the week. She caught it half a second after she said it. Her cheeks pinked. She did not take it back. I didn't take it back either. Who said there was a wedding? I guessed. I let it go for now. For the room, for the photograph, for the moment. But I let it go the way you let a piece of paper float down to a tabletop. Not the way you let a piece of paper out the window. The week that followed was the longest, quietest, busiest week of my life. Stephanie Harris filed a letter on Friday. Cease and desist. Notice of intent to dissolve the management contract for material misrepresentation. Attached, a sworn declaration from one of her previous clients, a singer-songwriter who had spent 18 months trying to extract her own catalog from the Ramirez Talent Group and had walked away with about 30% of what she had earned. Jason did not call Rachel. That should have felt like relief. It didn't. In the meantime, I drove the folder Larry had kept since 2018 to Stephanie's office on the corner of 10th and Yamhill. Stephanie was, as advertised, the size of a hummingbird. She wore her reading glasses on a chain. Her office smelled like Earl Grey tea and old books. She looked at the folder. She read the notarized change order. She read the canceled deposit check. She read the 3 emails from the office assistant. She tapped the deposit check twice with one finger and said, "Oh, honey," the way people in Portland say, "Oh, honey," when they are looking at someone else's lifetime of receipts. She slid the folder into a brown accordion file already labeled R. Flores, J. Ramirez. "This," she said, "is going to be useful. My father didn't chase it." She lowered her glasses. "Your father," she looked at me over the rims, "built a paper trail in case his son ever needed one. You can call that an accident." I don't. I drove back to the shop in the rain. Larry was sanding when I came in. He didn't look up. She used the word useful. She did. He nodded. "Your father would be smug right now. Probably, insufferably. Probably." He kept sanding. That night, Rachel and I sat on her couch and ate Thai food out of the cartons. She had her legs across mine. Her piano lid was open. A sheet of staff paper, pencil-marked, sat on the music stand. She had been writing something. She would not show me what yet. "Soon," she said. "Soon. Thanksgiving's in 9 days," she said. Around a mouthful of pad CU. "My mother wants you there. She wants you there enough that she invited Larry." "And Margaret," I stopped chewing. "She did what?" "She found out you don't have anyone left. She doesn't know how to apologize directly. So she invites your 2 favorite people to dinner. That is the wildest love language I have ever encountered. Welcome to the Flores family." She bit a noodle off her chopstick. She did not look at me when she said the next thing. "Don't get me wrong. She is not a fixed woman. She's a woman who is trying. She's going to fail sometimes. She's going to slip and call him by name. She's going to ask you if your shop is doing well in a way that makes you feel like you're being audited. She's going to do all of that? But, she's trying." That's a hard sentence to say about a parent. Yeah, I thought of my own. I thought of Kenneth in the photograph. I thought of the workbench where he had collapsed without warning. I thought of the way Larry had walked into the hospital that day with sawdust still on his hands because he hadn't even stopped to wash and had stood at the end of the bed and said to the doctor twice, "He's a tough one, Doc. He's a tough one." Trying was a thing the living got to do. I squeezed Rachel's ankle on my thigh. "She invited Larry and Margaret, she did. Then we go." Thanksgiving morning broke clear in Portland. A rarity. I picked up Larry and Margaret at 11. Margaret wore a navy cardigan with rhinestone buttons and held a casserole dish like it contained a baby bird. Larry wore his suspenders. Pamela met us in the kitchen doorway, apron tied at her waist, hair pinned up off her neck. She looked smaller than she had at the engagement party. Not defeated. Smaller in the way a person looks when they are not standing on the front of their own shoes. "I know," she said, quiet to Larry. "Your shop did our dining table in 91. Walnut, trestle base. He picked it himself. He's got an eye." Pamela smiled. The smile was new, a thing she was practicing. Dinner happened around the trestle table Kenneth Lewis had built in 1991. Scott set down his knife. "We're going around the table. Each person says one thing they're thankful for." Larry, when it came to him, "I am thankful for chairs, for wood, for the smell of my wife's coffee in the morning, and for the second son who keeps thinking he can outwork me when I can clearly outwork him." He did not look at me when he said it. I looked at my plate. Pamela held her napkin in her lap with both hands. "I am thankful that better late is still not the same as never, and I am thankful for both my daughters, even when, especially when, they tell me when I'm wrong." Rachel did not cry. Her chin shook, just once. Then she shook it off the way you shake off rain. Later, in the cold garage, helping Scott carry leftovers to the freezer, he stopped and looked at me with Rachel's eyes. My daughter was small, for a while, smaller than she has any right to be. We didn't fix that. She did. We watched. I'm telling you so that the next time my wife says one wrong thing, you know the rest of us have been working to learn the right ones. I'll remember. Some men make sense to each other in garages. I love them for it. The week after Thanksgiving was the calm before the wave. Stephanie Harris had warned us. The thing about a man like Jason, she said, was not the immediate explosion. It was the slow press. He would not raise his voice. He would file a motion. He would have his attorneys send a heavy envelope. He would do everything within the rules of the system because he had used the system before and knew how it bent. We would lose nothing. We would simply be tired. He was, she said with the patience of a woman who had watched this exact movie 3 times, banking on tiredness. The heavy envelope arrived on a Thursday afternoon. Jason had filed a request for declaratory judgment, establishing him as co-author of 3 pieces, including Window Light, plus a motion for $50,000 in legal fees, on the theory that Rachel had been unreasonably withholding cooperation. Rachel called me from her car, voice steady in a way that meant the steady was a choice she was making with effort. I am going to see him, tomorrow. At his office. I am bringing the master file and your father's folder. By myself, Jeffrey, Rachel, I have to. Because if you walk into that office with me, he will spend the meeting trying to undermine you. He'll do it surgically. If I walk in alone, he has no one to talk to but me. And I am, frankly, the worst person to put in a room with him at this point. Why? Because I have stopped being afraid of him. A pause. I want you in the diner, across the street, with a milkshake at 3. If I'm not out by 3:45, you come over. Friday afternoon, I sat at the counter of a diner on 15th at 5 minutes to 3. I ordered a chocolate milkshake. I did not drink it. The straw stuck up out of the cup. The cup made a small ring on the formica that I traced with one finger as the minutes passed. Across the street, on the 12th floor of an office building with mirrored glass, Rachel Flores walked into the office of Ramirez Talent Group with a hard drive in a padded sleeve, a manila folder soft at the corners, a small notebook, and 3 years of practiced shrinking. She was no longer interested in performing. She told me the words later, by lamplight, with her head on a pillow, in a voice that surprised her by being steady all the way through. She set the hard drive on his desk. She set the folder beside it. She set the notebook on top of the folder. She did not sit. The hard drive has the original master file of Window Light, timestamped. March 14th, 2 years ago. 2 months before we met, she tapped the folder twice. The folder is a notarized record of a job a furniture maker named Kenneth Lewis did for your company in 2018. 8 chairs, a walnut table. You stiffed him on the final invoice. So you're going to be the one in a courtroom, Jason. Not me. A muscle moved in his jaw. Rachel, wait. She opened the notebook. The notebook is a list of 3 names, 3 of Stephanie's other clients, each describing the same pattern under your management: contractual misrepresentation, intimidation. In 2 cases, a claim to co-authorship of work you did not write. They are all willing to file sworn declarations. And Stephanie received a letter this morning from a 4th woman, who is not yet ready to sign anything, but who would like to be kept informed. This is a witch hunt. It is not a witch hunt. It is a record. She closed the notebook. You are going to dissolve our management contract today. You are going to assign 100% of the performance rights of all 3 compositions back to me. You are going to withdraw your declaratory judgment claim. You are going to drop the motion for legal fees. And you are going to sign a non-contact agreement that covers me, my family, my sister and her husband, the Lewis and Son workshop, and every employee of that workshop. For a period of 10 years he stared at her. And if I do not, she did not blink. Then the breach of contract complaint on Kenneth Lewis's work order gets filed Tuesday. The motion to dismiss your claim gets filed Wednesday. The 3 sworn declarations get attached to a joint complaint by Friday. The 4th woman, when she is ready, gets added. Stephanie has the press contact for the Oregonian on speed dial. I do not need to win, Jason. I just need to outlast you. Your clients are not going to keep hiring you while this story sits in the paper for 6 months. A silence. The kind a man like him had not been in for a very long time. What do you want me to say? Yes. To all of it? This is not how a settlement is supposed to work. This is exactly how a settlement is supposed to work when the other side has paper. He sat down. He put his head in his hands. She let him sit with it for 15 seconds. Then she said it, quietly, without cruelty, with the steadiness she had been practicing in a kitchen with smoke alarms and chairs and bare-shouldered green dresses. Jason. I did not change. I just stopped pretending, he signed. In his own office, in his own ink, with her notebook open beside him. She watched him sign each line. Then she put the hard drive back into its sleeve, picked up the folder, and crossed to the door. Goodbye, Jason. He did not answer. She slid onto the stool next to me at the diner at 3:37. It's done. I haven't cried yet. I might in a minute take a minute? She picked up the milkshake I had not touched, took one long pull on the straw, closed her eyes. I told him I didn't change. I just stopped pretending. It came out clean. I've been practicing it. In my head. For 3 days, she leaned her head on my shoulder. The waitress refilled my coffee. The cook turned a hash brown on the flat top. Rachel breathed against my shoulder. The breath was real. I would later find out that what I felt at that exact moment was something Kenneth Lewis used to call working pride. Pride in someone else's work after the work is finished, while the wood is still cooling. He used it about Larry, he used it about my mother, he used it about me exactly twice. I had not felt it from the other direction before. I felt it now. The next morning, Pamela showed up at Rachel's apartment unannounced, a Tupperware of pumpkin bread in one hand, a small wooden box in the other. I went to see Jason last week, before you went to his office. I told myself I wanted to thank him for the years he, quote, took care of you. He laughed at me, honey. He smiled and said, Mrs. Flores, you've been more helpful to me than you know. I drove home, sat in the driveway for an hour. Your father came out and sat next to me. We didn't say a word. She opened the box. Inside, in tissue paper, square photographs from the 70s. Rachel at 5 in pigtails, at a piano with her feet not touching the floor. At 12 with a violin she would later quit. At 19 in a graduation gown, head tipped back, laughing at something off camera. I forgot, Pamela said. I forgot you were a person. Not a plan I made. I don't need you to forgive me. I need you to know that I know. Rachel put her head on her mother's shoulder, the way she used to as a small child. Pamela rested her hand on the back of Rachel's head. They sat that way for 20 minutes, without speaking, the pumpkin bread cooling on the counter. There are reconciliations that take an hour. There are reconciliations that take a year. This one arrived at the door with pumpkin bread and a box of square photographs, and a sentence rehearsed all the way over from Gresham. December came cold and clear. The performance rights came back to Rachel by mid-month, because Jason's attorney did not want a deposition in January. We did not celebrate loudly. Larry made us a tiny walnut keepsake box with a brass hinge and one line carved into the lid. Still here in February, under a slow wet snow that arrives in Portland maybe 1 year in 5. I asked Rachel to the shop after dinner. I had lit the work lamps. In the center stood the walnut credenza I had been working on the night she first opened her window. Finished now, polished with the same wax my grandfather had used since 1958. On it, 2 mugs, a framed photograph, and a black ring box. Larry was in the office with a camera, pretending very badly that he was not. The day Amanda left, I packed up a part of me and labeled the box, "Do not open." And then there you were. You did not need saving. You walked into a man's office alone and walked out with your work, your name, your mother, your sister, and 3 women you have never met who slept better because of you. So this is not a thank you. I did not unpack the box because you handed me a crowbar. I unpacked it because I no longer wanted to live in a house with a box like that in it. I knelt. My bad knee hit the concrete and I winced. Rachel laughed. Wet, surprised Rachel Flores. I do not have a lot. A shop with a loan against it. A bench my father died at. A second father with suspenders who refuses to retire. 3 of my grandfather's coffee cans full of nails I am sure I will need later. A heart put back together more times than I'd like to admit. Not perfectly, but strong enough. Will you marry me? She knelt beside me, her hands on either side of my face. Yes, yes, yes. The ring had been my grandmother's. A small sapphire, 2 tiny diamonds. A thin band of yellow gold darkened over 78 years, in the way gold darkens with skin. My father had kept it for me, and had not lived long enough to see it leave his house. It fit her. Larry took a picture, then turned away, and I saw his shoulders shake, and knew the only privacy he was offering us was the privacy of pretending he wasn't a man who cried. We were married in May, at the cemetery where Kenneth Lewis is buried under a stone that says, "Built beautiful things." Margaret officiated, in the navy cardigan with rhinestone buttons. Larry wore his suspenders. Scott walked Rachel. Nicole, 6 months pregnant by then, wept openly the entire ceremony. Rachel read her vows. I used to think love was a test you had to pass. You taught me it's a window, and all you have to be is brave enough to open it. I promise I will open the window every day, even when it rains, because the man on the other side has always deserved to see me. I read mine. I have spent my life restoring furniture. The broken things are not garbage. They are just things nobody took the time to understand. You are not furniture. You do not need repairing. But you taught me that a man too can be opened again. That a closed-up life is not a safer life. It is only a smaller one. I promise to be the man who never makes you feel small. A J landed on the gravestone halfway through the recessional, looked at us, and did not move. Larry was already pointing, his other hand against his mouth. 3 years later, on a Thursday afternoon in October in a small house in Selwood, Rachel called me down to the basement studio. She turned a sheet of paper around. Not music, a list of names. Kenneth, William, Margaret, Eleanor. Her hands were folded over her stomach. Why Eleanor? Because my mother slipped and called me by it the night you were there. Because it's the name I almost was. I want to give it to someone who will never almost be anyone. I took all of them right there, on the piano bench, with my forehead against her temple, and the October light coming through the open studio window. Later we sat on the back deck. An old rescue dog named Walter dozed between us. The basil I had planted smelled exactly the way it had in her apartment 3 years ago on the night of the broken window. Who did you wear the green dress for? I asked. She laughed. Long, easy, for me. I wore it to prove I was strong enough to walk in, so you didn't need me. I did not need you to be strong. I needed you to be understood. The studio window was open. The kitchen window above us was open. 2 windows, I said. Forever.